Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button, and if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. Sam Smith, Love Goes. Sam Smith is an English singer, songwriter, balladeer who really rose to prominence in the early 2010s off of the hit Latch with Disclosure. Ever since then, they've been a pretty heavy mainstay in this soulful pop ballad genre, with some fairly big hits such as Stay With Me, I'm Not the Only One, and Too Good at Goodbyes. Sam was releasing singles for this album for quite a while. Their first one, Dancing with a Stranger with Normani, released in January of 2019, and then 6 other subsequent singles followed. Most of them made it onto this album in the form of bonus tracks at the end. We'll get to those at the end of this review. Of course, I do cover deluxe editions, but the core album is 11 tracks, so what do I think about Love Goes? Let's find out as I review it track by track. We'll start with the core album singles, with there only being 2 of them. The first one being My Oasis with Burna Boy, which is a song I'm kinda conflicted on. These submerged synth pops, plus these plucks from what sounds like a flamenco guitar, which is already a big contrast in styles, and not really a good contrast either. Then we get some dense bass pulses and Sam's delicate vocals all leading up to the chorus, and that's where I think the track really falls. The chorus doesn't feel like anything, really. It just kind of comes off as a continuation of the verses, and the repetition on that faux drop, it just kind of comes off a bit lazy. Burna Boy takes second verse, and while I do think his timbre is more appropriate to this wavy instrumental, he really only contributes 7 bars and then returns for a 20-second outro. I mean, his presence might as well be non-existent. And lyrically, it's pretty much just a sex song looking for sex in a dry period of your life. I mean, yeah, this lead-off single did nothing for me. Next. The second and final single, and one of their biggest hits, Diamonds, however, this is where it's at. I love this song, and I'm so happy it's been getting healthy radio play. The track opens up all angelic and beautiful with the piano, and Sam's heartbroken lyrics about this relationship that crumbled, and how they can take down all the memories they left. They mean nothing to them anymore. But then the track really kicks in with the synth-heavy electro-pop upbeat tempo of the chorus, and it's such a heavy jam all the way throughout going forward. While it is a definite change-up for Sam when it comes to genres, I think this type of song they can absolutely knock out of the park. The juxtaposition between the lonely lyrics but the happy club-ready instrumental is really something to behold. And just how effective it is? This is a stellar track, one of the best things Sam's probably done to date. I mean, worth a listen if you haven't heard it already. Now for the rest of the tracks. Opener Young feels much more like an introduction to this album, but I don't think it was intended to be one. It feels a lot more like a spoken word declaration, really, over anything else. There's very minor instrumental elements here, ambient synths, light piano, but that's about it, as Sam sings about these existential lyrics about wishing to be young again, and all the stresses and complications that come with fame. It's definitely an appropriate opener for an album, but I honestly wouldn't keep it around for a casual listen. Another one is a track in a very similar vein to Diamonds, where it opens in a very heavenly way, this time with a chorus though, and the true tempo kicks in for the rest of the track. But unlike Diamonds, it isn't a deep, groovy, heavy bass, it's just kind of light, airy, gentle, a little bit mid-tempo as well. It's not a spectacular instrumental, but it is relatively harmless. Sam's vocals throughout the track are pleasing, they almost always are to me. I mean, that hasn't changed, but the tune morphs a little bit near the bridge into this hypnotic trance of a track, very fitting for the guy producing it, one half of the group Disclosure, which was really a eureka moment for me, and kind of why I didn't personally care for this track sonically. Lyrically, though, I think it is written in a captivating yet gripping way. Learning that this former lover met someone else while they were on tour, it comes off as very personal and vulnerable, which I do like, but to me the instrumental kind of comes off as a weaker version of Diamonds, and it just falls flat for me, unfortunately. So Serious is trying to be a lot more of a moodier pop song, with these snaps and claps mostly substituting for percussion, and I think Sam kind of nailed this track in a couple of ways. Number one, I think this keyboard melody, while it can be blaring, it does pop and adds some life to the chorus when it comes around. And number two, their vocals are very well suited to this type of music, and even in a lot of the lesser touched on instrumental passages, such as the string section, and the verses being much more intimate, a setting Sam can truly shine in, and has done so multiple times on previous albums. The track has a very sweet and appealing vibe to it, but the lyrics are a bit more profound, with them singing about dealing with sudden emotional shifts. 1 second you're okay, and the next you're crying into a pillow asking where you went wrong. Hidden behind a winsome instrumental, it does a good job. I enjoy it. Dance parentheses Till You Love Someone Else returns to this vein of being a heavy, groovy pop song, especially with the slight funk of the synths. Unlike Diamonds, though, this one seems to be much more fitted for a rave, with the repeated title over this mashed up amalgamation of various pitches. It's probably the furthest Sam really gets away from their trademark style on this record, and while I do feel like I should hate this, I really don't. The instrumental has a nice swing to it with those entrancing qualities such as the driving drum machine and sputtering synths on the verses. Sam's voice doesn't really stand out on this one, which I've always felt is a defining characteristic of their music, but I can still enjoy this and the lyrics as well, which Sam mentioned the track is meant to be a sequel to Dancing with a Stranger, which we'll get to, but this is where they want to go out and heal this feeling of loneliness, masking it with someone else's presence. It's very hedonistic, and after a bunch of songs that were a bit more depressing, I'll take it. Good song. For the Lover That I Lost brings us right back to Sam's wheelhouse, a nice, soothing, heavenly ballad, and out of all of them here, this one's probably my favorite. This actually is a cover, though, of the song of the same name by Celine Dion, and I think Sam does this track good justice. The gorgeous string arrangement, the strong yet fluctuating piano, and Sam's voice being just as good as always. It's a great cover, it's very well placed in the overall vision of the album. Good song. Breaking Hearts returns again to ballad territory, and in a much sparer, more elegant way. The subtle instrumental touches in the background grow throughout the track, but never to an overwhelming extent. It's a very scant track that depends on Sam's delivery, which feels passionate, powerful, I would even border on exasperated with some of their deeper passages. This instrumental is also worth noting, with the warm piano, the snaps, the minute string work, definitely bordering on pop ballad. But it feels like so much more with lyrics about this seemingly hostile viewpoint of this crumbled relationship. But there is also mutual respect for the plug to be pulled on their love. It feels inflective, and I enjoy it. Good song as well. Forgive Myself is truly the apex of ballads on this record. It doesn't get much sadder than this. Case in point, the instrumental, the despondent piano, plus the looming cello both at this slow, harmonious pace just rips at the heart, and Sam goes in and pulls it all the way out with how they sing this track, displaying their phenomenal vocal range and power, conveying these existential feelings of loss, regret, and grievance as they sing about just that, seeming to be very fresh off this breakup, trapping this partner who's already out of their relationship inside their thoughts and their memories, and how they won't be able to love anybody else until they can forgive themselves. It's a beautiful and immaculate song, and I really like it. The title track Love Ghost featuring Labyrinth is certainly not the type of track I was expecting from this pairing. In fact, it's not the type of track I would expect from Sam at all. The track introduces us fairly early with this classical-esque piano arrangement accented by some deeper bass thumps. Very sparse as Labyrinth opens the track vocally. His falsetto is very fitting and blends in well. The track begins to build when Sam comes in for the second verse. We get some ambiance that surrounds the instrumental, and the outro explodes with this triumphant grandiosity. The trumpets, the deep, almost marching band-esque drums. It feels like it should be the climax for this record, and it isn't. Even for the standard edition, which still kind of puzzles me. Lyrically, both artists accuse each other in song, playing these characters in romance, and it works. I love the instrumentation, love the performances, love the song. Great track. Kids Again, which became a post-album release single, is another deviation from Sam's sound, diving into a reflective, reminiscent acoustic track led by soft, pillowy guitar strumming and a very light drum melody. It's all just so cathartic in a way to close off the standard edition of this record, glancing back into your past and these lyrics about how you'll never be wild and free as you were when you were a kid again. And while there are tie-ins to a relationship here as well, obviously, I look at this as permanent loss of their blissful innocence propelled by Sam's regretful vocal tone. It's a great end to this album, but of course, we still got all the bonus singles to get through. Let's keep going. Now it's time for the bonus tracks. We'll start with Dancing with a Stranger with Normani. This one's pretty much already a classic. Love the track from release, still really do. The whistling atmosphere in the background, the snaps plus the firm yet gripping percussion. It's spare at its core, but it just feels like so much more once the vibes kick in. Sam's presence is amazing on this track. Their falsetto works really well for this driving tempo, and the chemistry with Normani is very surprising. She wouldn't have been my first pick solely by ear, but after hearing them both singing that chorus, I am now a firm believer. Their voices blend so well as they sing about the follow-up to this failed relationship and how they're moving on from an extinguished flame, dancing with someone they don't know. It's a fantastic song, and I'm glad it was as big as a hit as it was. How Do You Sleep is pretty much a similar case to Dancing with a Stranger, at least to me in almost every single aspect. This instrumental is so satisfying to listen to, the glossy, shimmery synths twinkling like stars, accenting the serene drums. This one takes a bit longer to build up than Dancing with a Stranger, but when that chorus hits in, we get the keyboard melody, plus the drop brings in the bass, plus these kind of awkward chipmunk vocal section, probably my least favorite part of the track. Just doesn't blend in that well in my opinion. Lyrically, it's a bit of a resenting tale about how this partner constantly lies and how they ask how do they sleep when they lie, in the end hoping that their love will keep them up at night. Not as good as Dancing with a Stranger in my opinion, but certainly right up there. Great track. To Die For, which was actually the title track to the older version of this album, and I think this is okay. It's certainly not the best he's done at all. It has slight pop touches that kind of kill the track in my eyes. The murky drum beat is especially distracting. Plus, Sam's vocals don't really soar like their best, but they're also not melancholic enough to wallow in this sorrow. They're very middle of the road, and that's kind of what I have to say about this track as a whole. Sure, the piano and string work are nice, but they don't add the most depth to the track. They almost feel drowned out in comparison to this drum. Meh, it's okay, but it's not stellar. I'm Ready featuring Demi Lovato is a very perplexing track. I'm not too sure how I feel about it. The progressive buildup of the drum work to this grand chorus with a background chant should feel like this liberating song, especially with these lyrics about being ready to fall in love again, but it really isn't. It feels clunky and confusing as a result. I personally think the reason why is I don't think Demi Lovato is the right choice as a guest. I do get the idea of including Demi in a song like this. She certainly has pipes and can sing very well, but there's also very little chemistry between the two. Sam's voice is a lot more reserved. Even at its grandest, it inevitably falls back into a higher falsetto. They don't match as well as they sound they could, and this track kind of proves it. A bit of a shame, but I'm gonna have to skip. Fire on Fire is probably the best ballad to come out of the bonus tracks. Pretty on par with a lot of the stuff from The Thrill of It All. In fact, I could see it blending in there with these angelic strings on the background accenting the lighter piano so much better than To Die For did. Plus, another comparison is that Sam's voice wields so much more weight on this track, showing off just how wide their vocal range is. Lyrically, it's actually a love song, a full 180 from the direction that Sam is known for with his breakup ballads, so it's definitely a nice touch to hear a positive message in one of their songs like this. This is a great song. It definitely deserves a little bit more love in my opinion. And finally, the closer Promises with Calvin Harris. I mean, come on. How could you not just jam to this? Very direct melody courtesy of Calvin Harris, the constant shakers on the verses which evolves into this pulsating bass on the chorus. Not the biggest fan of the female vocal clips scattered throughout the track, but they really don't ruin the song at all. Sam's vocals remain fairly stagnant, stuck to a slightly deeper than average register, and it's pretty tolerable as they sing about not being able to make promises when it comes to love, so they just ask this person to take it now while they can. Not the way I would have ended an album personally, but still a good song. Hey everybody, this is Keegan here in editing. Just thought I would let you know that my dumbass actually forgot to shoot an overall thoughts for this Sam Smith album, Love Goes. I'm going to try to keep this brief, and I'm just going to say that I don't think it's their best album, but I do think it's their weakest. There were some really good hits on here. Stuff like Diamonds and Promises, just a bunch of those more upbeat songs are all pretty much good. I think there's a lot of middle-of-the-road songs which kind of weigh the album down a little bit. As a whole, though, I really do prefer Sam in their more ballad-esque types, the more slower stuff like on The Thrill of It All, which is one of my favorite albums from them. So, as a whole, I think I'm going to have to give this a 7 out of 10. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.